Yo, what is going on, Breaker Nation? It is your boy Lo. I'm back, so I know it's kind of been a little while. Sorry about that. We've been going through a lot of changes. As you can see, the wall behind me empty, and we have a new logo um, up and up there. You see it. We are now the Fan Media Network. Um, we are the official fan media um, network, I guess, of the USFL's Discord, the official USFL Discord. So if you're not in there, get in there, okay? Just get in there. You need to be in there. You're missing out on good stuff, okay? Um, Also, part of why it took me so long to record another episode of this was because we went through some changes, and now Webb, who was, you know, on this show for a long time throughout the season, really, he will now be covering the Maulers. Poor guy. I kind of feel bad for him. However, I will still be doing this, still be making these shows. So I needed a new graphic. I needed a new intro, a new outro, yada yada. All the good stuff. So I had to wait for that stuff, but it's here. And usually this would be the ad spot. However, we do not have any sponsors right now. We are working towards that. So, without any further ado, let's get into the episode. Okay, so last time I did an episode that wasn't an interview, I was on my list of quarterbacks to replace Kyle Sloter, but some things have changed since then. Obviously, I've gotten through the entire list, and not only that, Kyle Sloter has also been released from the Jaguars. So we'll fully dive into Sloter getting cut in a minute, but I want to finish that list that I made because it can still be valid. So last time I was on, I had gotten through Shea Patterson and Zach Smith. So I would like to finish out the rest of that top six list, which most of my lists are top five, but that one I had to include obviously the guys on the roster, but I wanted, to have some guys that weren't on the roster. So the top four, they are on there. So I had Danny Etling at four. If you are from Louisiana, you probably like LSU or have watched LSU, so you probably know or at least kind of remember the name Danny Etling. Um, the thing with Etling is I like Etling a lot. I think there's a lot there to like. However, he is 28, and not only that, he is the third guy in Green Bay, which um, more than likely he'll end up on their practice squad. Even if he does get cut, he'll end up on their practice squad. So I think the odds of landing Etling are really low, which is why he's four on my list instead of being higher. And another guy who is before this video, before I made this list official, he was a free agent, was EJ Perry, but the Jaguars cut Kyle Sloter to sign EJ Perry. However, the Jaguars have Trevor Lawrence, CJ Beathard, and Jake Luton, as well as EJ Perry. So they have four quarterbacks. So clearly they're not going to keep four quarterbacks. So EJ Perry could still end up getting cut and being a free agent. There's a lot to like with him. He started games at Brown. He has nice touch on his passes. He's a very efficient quarterback, goes through his reads, and he's an efficient runner as well. So there's a lot to like with him. He's 24. He's really young. At number two, I have Levi Lewis. If you are from the state of Louisiana, you probably know this guy, or if you're a college football junkie, you probably know this guy. Just graduated from Louisiana, where he started numerous seasons for the Raging Cajuns. Obviously, we know that they've been arguably the second best Group of Five team the last couple of years. I mean, they've ran through their conference. They've done some really good things. And Levi is a lefty quarterback, which is rare, but it's also it's cool to see. Now he's listed at 5'10", 183 pounds, but if you go watch his film, it could just be because those guys are Group of Five, but he doesn't look 5'10". He looks a solid 6'2" or 3". I didn't even know until I googled him that he was 6'10" or that he was 5'10". So he is a complete free agent right now. He was in Seattle, but he was cut in May. So he's on the market and would be a great young quarterback to get in here. He didn't make a lot of like insane passes there, but he was a very efficient quarterback, a great leader, great locker room guy, and he's a really good runner, which in a league like this, you need a guy who is mobile. You need it. There was a big issue with Slaughter being hurt was it took away his mobility, which a lot of times we really needed. So, and at number one is another Louisiana kid, Cole Kelly. So Cole Kelly was a three-star recruit and landed in Arkansas. However, he eventually transferred to Southeastern Louisiana, which is an FCS program, where he started 2 years for the Lions. Um, there's a lot to like with him. He reminds me a lot of Josh Allen or Big Ben. Huge. He is huge. He's like 6'5", I think, or 6'6", and he's like 230, something like in that range. He's a big guy. He has um, good touch on his passes as well as somebody earlier in this list that I had said. He's very comfortable in the pocket. He usually goes through his progressions pretty well. He doesn't panic. He doesn't try to tuck the ball and run all the time, but he is very efficient runner. He led his team in rushing touchdowns the 2 years that he was there, which is insane because if you go watch his tape, you wouldn't think that, right? He doesn't, take off and run for 30 yards and look like he runs a 4.4. He just doesn't. But like he's very Josh Allen like, where when he does escape the pocket and move, it's very efficient and he gets good yardage. But he's so big that he takes guys on, and sometimes he fights for those extra yards, which is great. Cole Kelly, I'm pretty sure Kelly, Lewis, and Perry are all 24 years old, like on the dot. So they're all super young guys, and I mean, any of them that come in and compete would be great. But EJ Perry and Danny Etling are the only two that are on a roster right now. But Cole Kelly was released from the the Washington Commanders, a couple days ago, or maybe a week ago, or something in that range. And obviously, like I said about Levi Lewis, he's completely a free agent. So those guys are available, and I'd love to have anybody on this list of those four names down here. I'd love to have any one of those guys in New Orleans next season. But Levi and Cole Kelly are just a little bit above the rest. So now to get into Slaughter, basically Kyle Slaughter was cut, and from what I've been told by players is that, or at least by a player, is that everyone has a no compete clause, and everyone should have a no compete clause. However, where the quarterbacks were signed, and when I say quarterbacks, I'm talking about it might be all of them, but at least those eight, the first round pick, the eight, those eight were signed before then, so they apparently might not have the no compete clause, which would mean that Kyle Slaughter might not have the no compete clause, which would bar him from playing in the XFL or the CFL. So a couple things. One, he could have signed an updated contract at some point in the season that would have given him that no compete clause. And two, he just played an entire season in New Orleans, where they were a playoff team, and he was banged up, of course, but he went to a playoff game. He played pretty much every game other than that last meaningless game against Houston, which they wanted him to be healthy for the playoffs. He knows the players, he knows the coaches, he knows the front office, the GM, however you want to see that. He knows the playbook and just the landscape of the league in general, right? So I find it really hard to believe that if Slaughter is on the market and doesn't land in another NFL gig, I find it hard to believe that he would go join another league where he's not guaranteed a starting spot. Where here, he knows everybody, and they know what he's capable of, and there's a high chance that he would start again. So I think if he is on the market, if he's free, if he's not on a roster, I do think he does end up back in the United States Football League in New Orleans. Now, that does not mean that one of those four from my list shouldn't be brought in, because I do think having a four quarterbacks compete is crucial, especially those guys who are you know fighting for NFL roster spots. You know what I mean? I mean, these aren't scrubs, right? So to have one of those guys in, at least in camp, because we've heard about the USFL expanding rosters to 75. So to have one of those guys come in, or just any guy that gets cut completely from the NFL this preseason, have any of those guys come in and compete is very crucial in my opinion, whether we get Slaughter back or not. So, uh, speaking of lists, I do a lot of top five, top tens, top six, yada yada yada. I do a lot of that stuff over on my Instagram, but I always make sure to talk about it over here as well, because over there, yes, I can type the stuff, but it's easier to just talk, you know, and that's what I have this platform for. So I had the fans vote on the next top five that they wanted to see, and they voted on the top five potential stadiums for the New Orleans Breakers whenever they come to New Orleans. So I've gotten all the way to five through two, but I figured I would just talk about them all, because I mean, a lot of you can probably guess what number one is, anyways. It's been a stadium that I've talked about since before we even had guys on a roster. Okay, so let me pull that up for you guys so you can at least see it while I'm talking about it. So, Pan American Stadium is a stadium that is near downtown New Orleans. I think that realistically, only the top three are stadiums that could be used, but you never know. And plus, I wanted my list to have five because I just like top fives. I think they're better, anyways. So Pan Am is a stadium that holds 5,000 people, which is very small. As you guys know, it's probably too small, But I do think that at some point you could see the Breakers possibly practice there, maybe, or hold some type of OTA there or something, because a stadium that holds 5,000 people would be nice to get, for an OTA, and get fans in for open practices and whatnot. I think that'd be cool. Number four, I had Tad Gormley. So the stadium holds 26,000, which is pretty much perfect, or just right around perfect for a league like this. For any spring football league, stadiums of that size are perfect. However, it is a stadium that has a track around the field, which Hmm. You can't have that on TV. I mean, that looks bush league in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion. That you just can't have that on TV. So I find it really hard to believe that they would play there. And not to mention the stadium itself is kind of like a U. The seating itself is like a U, and this like upper area and one of the end zones is there's no seating over there, so it's completely empty, which would also look kind of weird in bush league on TV. So you just um, yeah, I don't know. I just I think the seating was nice. 26,000 is great, and it is near downtown New Orleans, but I just don't see it happening. At number three, I had the Superdome. It's always going to be the Superdome. Well, I mean, to me, it's always been Mercedes. I know that they're the Caesar Superdome and whatever, the dome. So there are some positives with the dome. One, it's indoor, so you avoid the Louisiana heat, which if you're from the boot, you know it gets hot down there. It's humid. But also, it's an NFL stadium, so there's always that. But some of the downsides are the fact that it holds 74,000, which is way too much. Way, way, way too much. And it would look bad on TV. And it's hard to hide. Sometimes you can hide that stuff on TV, but the thing is, you can only tarp off so much. You know what I mean? You can only tarp and hide so much. So um, it would be nice to be in an NFL stadium and possibly build a relationship with the ownership of that NFL team, but I just don't think it would happen. And the only way that they would play in the dome is if they played a season or two in my number one or two stadium and completely sold it out every single game. If they played 5 home games in Ullman or the Shrine and completely sold both whatever stadium they were in, if they completely sold it out and even then some for every single game and did that for a season or two, then they possibly might move to the dome. But until then, I don't see it. So number two is really intriguing, but I think that one and two are really close, especially after today, because there's a lot to there with the Shrine. As you guys know, if you're from that area, you know that's where the Zephyrs and the Baby Cakes played. So it is a baseball stadium that holds 10,000 people, which at first, you know what a baseball stadium is. You know, the seating is kind of like this, right? And doesn't fully go all the way around, especially for a smaller stadium. However, they plan on renovating it and making it more into a soccer or football style of stadium where the seating would go all the way around, like a giant rectangle. And that would probably put it at about somewhere, it's at 10,000 now. So you can imagine they would probably add at least another 5K to 10K seats. So that would put that stadium around between 15 and 20,000 or even a little bit more, which would be absolutely perfect. And I think there's a lot more pros with this stadium. The fact that it's so close to the Saints facilities, where they practice and yada, yada, yada. There are NFL scouts, NFL coaches, NFL league office members that would be pretty much at every one of your home games if you played there, right? Because I mean, if we've seen the Saints pick up a few USFL guys, so you're telling me if there's a team playing less than 5 minutes away from them that they wouldn't go. You know what I mean? Like there would be someone there from the Saints organization at every Breakers home game, and that benefits the Breakers. Most importantly, it benefits the league and it benefits whatever team they're playing, right? Because that gets eyes front and center on them, not just on TV, but there watching in person, which is amazing. There's also maybe the possibility of even being able to use the Saints facility to practice at, which is a small chance, but anything's possible. I've been told that there's a lot of parking there, which is also good, makes it easy to get in and get out. There's a lot to like with the Shrine, not to mention the fact that it's darn near unused right now, where uh, only a rugby team uses it. Now, if they renovate it, their plan is to hold, like soccer tournaments or um, big high school football games that are in that area. But you know, if the USFL comes a knocking, offering money to play there, of course. So it would be cool because it would almost be like the Breaker Stadium in a way, because where no one else plays there, pretty much. It would be cool, and a lot of it would be new with a lot of new facilities. So that would also be a plus for the Breakers and just for the league in general. So there's a lot to like with the Shrine. The only downside to I can think of like pretty much two downsides. One, the stadium is 15 minutes away from downtown New Orleans, which kind of sucks. Now, at first, excuse me, I was told that it was like around 30 minutes, but I went to Google and I put in from the dome to the shrine, and it told me 15 minutes, which is a lot better than 30. I still think you could get people there. It would be a smaller stadium because the renovations. I would say it's probably going to be around 15 to 20,000, somewhere in that range, maybe 17,000, 18,000. Which really, as long as you could get maybe 10K people there plus a game, I mean, I think you'd be fine. Um, Even though I do think that they would pull more than that, but regardless, there's a lot to like about the shrine, but there's a few cons with the distance, and also the renovations themselves. We don't know when they're going to start exactly. We know they have the funding and they know how much it's going to cost, but we don't know when they're going to start. We don't know how long they're going to start. I'm not 100% sure. We don't know when um, the USFL will fully expand. We've heard 2 hubs. We've heard 4. So there could be a possibility that the Breakers don't end up in New Orleans until year 3, and the Shrine could be completely renovated by then, and they might end up playing there. But um, say they did the 4 hubs this year, and that stadium's not renovated by then. Now what? It's not an option. So timing is another thing that could cause this to be a negative. It's a con in my opinion compared to a pro, just because, like I said, we don't know when they're going to be done. So at number 1, I have Ullman. Tulane Stadium. I think Ullman is probably the safest option. It's a fairly new college stadium. There's no track around the field, of course. It holds 30,000, which is a decent amount, but it's also like 5 minutes maybe from downtown New Orleans. Like, it's right there. It's pretty much right there. And it's fair. It's pretty much unused after Tulane's season ends, other than I think they play a spring game there. But I mean, other than that one thing, which you could also probably avoid if play your cards right, you can always, if 30K seems to be a little bit much, you can always tarp some of that off. Like we saw them do that in the championship. We saw them do that in Birmingham to cut down the seating number a little bit, kind of make the stadium look a little bit more full, which I'm fine with. I actually really, really like that idea because, it makes the stadium look a little bit smaller. And the tarping, as long as you have something on it, maybe you have breakers on there or USFL, like it'll look fine as long as there's something on there. So there's a lot of pros with that stadium. The one con that I've heard of is that parking there is very sus and there's not a lot of it. So that could be, something that kind of sucks. But for the most part, there's it's pretty much mostly pro with Yeoman, and it's safe, it's close, um, it's pretty much unused, all the things I've already said. So there's a lot to like there. And I think really, in my opinion, I think the dome is still an option because it's there and it's also pretty much unused and it's an NFL stadium. But really, in my truest opinion, I think it's between Ullman and the Shrine. And there's a lot to like with both of those options. And honestly, I would not be mad if they chose either one of those. Ullman's been my number one option since literally like November of 2021, a long time ago. Okay, like a long time. But the shrine getting an uplift is good for the city, but it also could be good for the Breakers. So we'll just have to see how that goes. There's a lot that's gonna change with this league um, over an off season because we've never seen a spring league off season. So there's going to be a lot of things that might change. But one thing that I think we've all heard a little bit about and that we're all excited about is Axis Football has been in talks with the USFL about making a video game, which would be amazing. They almost made an AAF game back in 2019, early 2019, which, obviously that would have been amazing. So the reason why I bring this up again, I know I've talked about this a few times. Their president did an interview with Sports Gamers Online, and he just talked a little bit more about the relationship that they've had with the USFL and just the talks that they've had and how positive everything is, which is a really good sign in my opinion. And at this point, anything's possible, but I would say like they probably darn near got this in the bag. Um, but I bring this up because in the article, he kind of talked a little bit about the release of, or interview, I should say. They talked about the game release of the release date of their new game that they're dropping, and it's set to release on Steam September 7th, but they said mid September for console. So, you know, if you do play video games, it would be cool to check this new game out because this could give you a little bit of insight into what a possible USFL game could look like, or just what features might be in there, right? They're known for a really good franchise mode, which would be great to have. They have really good customization. They've added a lot in gameplay, and I know the graphics aren't the best, but I mean, this is a team of like 5 dudes, I think, or it's like less than 10 doing this in their free time. Like like me doing this in my free time. This is them doing that in their free time, which is insane to me because video games making them is so complicated that I don't even know where to begin with that type of stuff. So, um, if they were to get money from Fox, like I've said before, they could improve graphics dramatically, give us a really good game. So if you've got the money, it's $20. If you've got the money and you've got an Xbox One or newer or PS4 or newer, buy the game, try it out, and look at it. And you know, this could be what ends up being a USFL game. This could be what it kind of looks like. So I think it'd be cool to check out. Um, with all that being said, that's pretty much most of what I had for this episode. I will have some interviews coming up with, some pretty good players that I'm really excited to have on. And Other than that, I will probably start a new list soon. Um, haven't decided yet. I'll probably run another poll. So by the time we get to the next episode of Breakers Weekly, hopefully I'll have a new one started and have some stuff out to talk about. But until next time, Breaker Nation, it's your boy Low. I'm signing off. Y'all know where to find me. Twitter, planet_LEAUX, and Instagram, BreakersNation.insider. So I'm headed to bed. You guys enjoy this quote unquote new outro. Peace.